Welcome to Under Two Capes. I'm Jared, and first off, we are talking about The Boys, the new episode of The Boys, or just The Boys show in general, and what's probably going to be a very controversial statement on the show: why the SnyderVerse is better than the entire MCU. To accomplish this monumental feat, I brought back up my good friend Hannah, her first time on Under Two Capes. Welcome to Under Two Capes.
Thank you. Waves.
So normally, so it's every time I have a guest on for the first time, I have a series of questions I normally ask. So Marvel or DC, which is better? I get the feeling I know the answer.
DC.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Nice to know you have taste. Who's your favorite superhero and why?
Oh, I'm really bad at favorites, so I hope all of these questions aren't favorites.
Don't worry. But
okay. Currently, I would say Black Canary.
Oh yes, I love Canary.
Yeah.
I do feel she was wasted in Birds of Prey because she only used her powers once.
Completely off on Birds of Prey.
Well, there's lots of reasons why that movie sucks. So,
but that was a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think sort of like the closest she's come to like a good sort of movie is probably the Injustice video game.
Oh yes,
that's how badly
she was great. She was great. She's one of my main characters in that game. There's her and Wonder Woman. I dominate as those two.
I liked her and Aquaman. I had never lost a fight as her or Aquaman in that game.
Oh my gosh, Aquaman in that game is so overpowered. I'm like, oh, come on. My problem with that game, by the way, is so when the Justice League movie was coming out, yes, Craptus League, but when that movie was coming out, they released like skins for all of the different Justice League members, which sucked because with Aquaman, it's the Justice League suit and trident, but it's still the blonde-haired white guy. And I'm like, I want Jason Momoa. I want the beard and long hair. What are you doing?
You want to feel sexy whilst you're Aquaman?
Yeah, or it's like Superman, just the S. I'm like, who came up with this?
Oh. I think I spent a ridiculous amount of time like playing dress up with my Black Canary on that game.
Well, she is like one of the, I think in general, she's one of the coolest DC characters ever because she has like a really, really ridiculous power. I remember this one animated movie, she was fighting someone with the powers of Superman. So she leans in close and whispers in his ear, "You want to hear a secret?" And then she just blasts him with her canary cry.
Yeah, I think with my whole not having favorites and being indecisive, the other whole everyone's like, oh, like street level heroes or like super powered heroes, and I feel like Canary is like just on the line.
Oh yeah, she's definitely fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, what's your favorite superhero movie?
BVS Ultimate Edition. Batman vs Superman.
Oh, you mean the only version of BVS that actually exists, right? Okay, but yeah, actually, that's one of the movies that gets like the most hate for no reason. It's like I did a video once with someone, and like most of the criticism for that movie is based on people that clearly haven't watched the movie.
And I feel like most of the criticism, like you could apply the same things to other movies, but it's just never done.
Plus like, the fact. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Like my biggest pet peeve is like the whole like Martha thing. Like the same people who are like, that was stupid, think that in The Winter Soldier, in the same movie, will undo like 70 years of mind control. But saying Martha, saying someone's mother's name to them when they have PTSD, that's far-fetched.
Yeah, I don't. That's my other problem, because so many people wanted the DCEU, still do, to be Marvel, and I'm like, they're not. There's a reason why there's DC before every movie.
Literally, yeah.
Speaking of the MCU, but let me see. What's my other questions I have here? You know what? That's good for right now. We'll come back to these. So, The Boys season, I think 3 is what we're on.
Yeah.
All right.
Was it the season finale?
I think it was the season finale, which is weird.
I think I only realized that after I watched it, and then I was like, whoa. no more.
Yeah. Well, so what's hilarious about The Boys, it's kind of like a more extreme version of Injustice, except
Yeah,
Superman's always been like a really evil dude. But
like evil Superman's trendy right now.
yeah, for some reason, I never understood that. I'm like, well, because what DC seems to think is that, okay, so Injustice was popular. Let's just make Superman always almost evil. Like, thanks, guys. But I love how the honest trailer for The Boys basically says, this is what would happen if Zack Snyder controlled the entire DCEU. And I'm like, oh, thank you. It's funny, but I'm like, oh, geez. But so in terms of The Boys, I found I think it's really cool how they sort of changed the comic book storyline to make it so basically Homelander is a clone of Soldier Boy.
Is he like a clone, or?
Well, they said that they took his DNA and then made Homelander.
Yeah, but he said that he like up, so
Yeah.
they could have been. I think they could have been a mom potentially, right?
Probably. Let me put it this way: in The Boys, anything could happen at this
I
point.
think he's a clone because clone you don't use that, right?
Yeah.
You don't to make a clone.
I don't know. They probably want to. They have to get his DNA from somewhere.
Yeah, but no, I think it was so obvious. Like it was so obvious to guess that Soldier Boy was his dad. I don't know why I didn't guess.
Well, yeah, because I sort of guessed there was a connection the minute they say, okay, so the minute in the episode, by the way, they say, okay, so he was going to be replaced by so we created this kid that's going to be able to fly. And I'm like, oh boy.
But I think, yeah, that's a really good way to end it.
By the way, that battle at the end of last episode was like that was like one of the coolest parts of the entire movie. Even Huey is getting blows in on Homelander.
It was nuts. It was crazy.
And then Homelander's like, the hell is going on?
I think that it still didn't top the Girls on Stormfront though.
Oh no, that was fantastic.
That was amazing.
And the dudes are just watching like, okay, who wants to intervene? No one? Okay, we're just gonna stick here and watch. But yeah, I also love
in the background.
Yeah, I also love how at the beginning of this season they make a bunch of Snyder Cut references, and they have like Stormfront being played by Charlize Theron, and I'm like, okay, I know what you're doing. The minute they said release the Bork cut, I was like, oh boy. It was funny, so I wasn't offended by anything like that because I was like, okay, it actually is really funny, particularly since. And like I think it was season 2, the Homelander's reading the script and he goes, these Joss Whedon rewrites are really pulling the movie together. And I'm like, oh boy, I know what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I don't have any complaints about the season of The Boys.
No, it's fantastic. Plus the idea, I also love it, going back to that fight scene when Butcher shows up with his powers and he goes, okay, scorched earth, I-beam. And then they have that obvious reference to BVS where their I-beams clash and like staring at each other. And I'm like, just so good. Zack Snyder's the blueprint for a lot of things. Don't you know? He invented movies.
Although I absolutely hate Huey. Tell me you're on the same page. I found him so irritating.
This season more so, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, dude.
Every season, oh my god.
I liked him in season 1 because he was like a fish out of, particularly when he first meets a butcher and he has to go into the tower.
Likable, but he's just so, like, I'm sorry if I'm offending men by saying this, but Huey's one of those characters, obviously written by a man, because they think that like Annie would want to have sex with them and she would not.
That's true.
Like, I'm sorry. There is no way. Annie's a 10 out of 10. There's no way she would be with Huey. Someone in the writer's room is delusional.
That's actually probably the idea, kind of, because it's like she's clearly out of his league.
No, but he doesn't. That's fine. Like, it's not like a problem, but it's what is his issue with him being a strong, like having powers? Like it's just, oh, it's so predictable.
At least in this episode, they kind of explained it by saying, "Oh, okay, the new V is gonna kill you." So I'm like, okay, I kind of got it, but it was like, I'm like, it seems kind of odd a little bit.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's just, of all the exciting things going on in that show, I just hate wasting screen time on his like inferiority complex. I kind of wanted Huey to die this season. Like,
Oh, you know what was the most hilarious thing I saw last night was Black Noir apparently having Looney Tunes friends in his head.
I thought that was
I was
actually
like-
really sad. I thought that was
I
really
was like,
sweet.
what the heck is going on? I'm like, of course Batman watches Looney Tunes. I got it.
I thought it was really sweet and really sad, actually.
And they recreate all of the parts from, like, they're actually bloodying each other. So I'm like, this is Looney Tunes from hell. Jeez. and of course, Soldier Boy is the bald eagle. So I'm like, all right, I see what he's very clearly Captain America if Captain America had no moral center. I'm just like, oh, although he fits in the boys. So I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah,
okay. I'm like, everyone here has no moral center.
But I like how he's like a different kind of like evil to Homelander.
Well, yeah, because he's
Yeah,
coming
they
from like the 40s.
Yeah, but I'm glad that they gave him like a different personality. Like I think that's such a good thing with the boys. Like I didn't feel like any of them are like stereotypes. It was just fresh characters, and they were like so distinct. Yeah, it's such a good show.
I also love how they made fun of like current culture where they have like Maeve's inclusive kingdom. So I was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. This is fantastic.
Oh yeah, and like the stuff with like Black Lives Matter and A-Train.
Yeah,
like, the company is. I was just like, that's just literally so true.
Yeah, that's what I love about the show. They make fun of everyone. Say what you want about them attacking the right more, but they clearly attack everyone and saying all of this is ridiculous. So that's why I have no problems with it, because I know inevitably there's going to be a joke that I agree with. Plus the fact a lot of what they do is really funny too. They put a more humorous spin on it, like the Snyder Cut stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is actually really funny.
Yeah, I didn't feel like with the Snyder Cut stuff, I didn't think it was like laughing at it, just sort of with it as well. I don't think it was like yeah.
You know they had to reference it because it's first off,
so
these characters are very clearly more evil versions of the Justice League, so it would kind of be like kind of out of place if they didn't bring it up once. But regardless, I think this is my favorite season we've had so far because I love the end of the episode last night, where actually, and this goes back to since last week's episode, you see Homelander afraid to the point where he's going to harvest Maeve's eggs so that he can make sure that there's going to be another one of him because he thinks he's going to get killed.
That was crazy.
Because now you have someone that can actually harm this Superman-like character because there's no kryptonite. So
yeah, I don't know where they're going to go next season, but I don't understand why Ryan has hardly been in the season. I feel like Ryan must come into play more next season.
That would be interesting.
Especially if they're going down the plot line of him like having another kid. I feel like Ryan has to show up a little bit more next season.
Most likely, yeah. I think that'd be really. I liked, by the way, how last season he made like a Lego version of like his life, kind of. So I was like, he made a Lego stop motion. So I was like, oh, that's actually really clever. But and I also love this was a meme that they put out for Father's Day, where it's like Happy Father's Day, Homelander throwing his son off the roof.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, yes, this is so great. By the way, Jensen Ackles is fantastic as Soldier Boy to the point where I want him to play Red Hood if they adapt Red Hood into live action. Please.
No.
He did the voice too. He did the voice act. He voice acted Red Hood in the Under the Red Hood movie.
I do love that movie, but I think he's too old to play like Jason.
That's like saying Henry Cavill is too old to play Superman. I'm like, these two.
But like if it was like an Under the Red Hood movie, isn't he supposed to be like early 20s, I imagine?
If they keep the helmet on, no. I get the. Well, here's the thing: no one's gonna care.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Well, here's the thing: you're dealing with a Batman that's kind of like older too, so they could always
know who Batman is at this current juncture.
Well, I guess let's transition to the Snyderverse. The heck is going on with the DCEU right now? Because because we're still not sure what's going to happen with the Flash, even though DC has, even though Warner Brothers has said that they're committed to a theatrical release, but Ezra keeps doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And also, here's the thing too. The problem with this Flash movie is that this is what they need is a reboot, but the reboot movie keeps having all of this controversy piled onto it. So my question is, let's say they do have to pull it. What do they do?
I don't know. I imagine that there's just, because it's been rewritten so many times, there's got to be so many like inconsistent scenes that have just have to be deleted and changed. I bet they could just do reshoots and honestly just change the entire premise of the movie. I think that's what they'll do instead of completely scrapping it.
I said from the very beginning, this would be a great time to introduce Wally West, the best version of the Flash, honestly, as someone that grew up on the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. Like,
I feel like that's so controversial though. Like, I feel like you say that to certain Flash fans.
I mean, I like Barry, but with Wally West, well,
so much fun.
First off, yes, he's so great. Plus, I think Wally West would fit more in if they brought back the Snyderverse, Zack's universe a little bit, other than Barry Allen, because Ezra was kind of playing a Wally West.
Yeah, he was. He did seem like a mix between them both.
Which is hilarious because so is Grant Gustin. Grant Gustin is clearly Wally West, but dark-haired. So it's like, okay. But so now going back to the main topic of this. So you and I are huge fans of the Snyderverse, and I believe that's part of why you and I are friends. But and I would say I'm a fan of the MCU. Let me be clear. A lot of their movies are amazing. But when you compare them to the Snyderverse, and by Snyderverse, we're talking about every movie that came out from Man of Steel to Justice League. And by Justice League, we're replacing the Whedon cut with the good version. So let me ask you this first. What's one reason why you think the Snyderverse is better than the MCU?
Gosh, I think when I think Snyderverse, I mainly just think of Snyder's like 3 movies.
Okay, that's fine. You can do that too. I was just referencing because the Snyderverse has a better female superhero movie too.
But it would just be. Would it just be Wonder Woman and Aquaman added to that then? Would it be 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5. If you think of where the MCU was, like 5 movies in.
These movies have made more. Actually, when you look at the gross at the box office for the beginning Snyder movies and the beginning MCU, Snyderverse movies made more.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like you're just not comparing like and like. Like there's like 20 or 30 MCU movies out there. Are so many.
And I still say the Snyderverse is better, but okay.
I know, but at the point that like Justice League came out, well, Zack Snyder's Justice League should have come out.
Yeah.
It was like around Infinity War and Endgame times. It's like you cannot compare like and like when there's been so much build up. So the fact that they are even in competition with each other is insane. The fact that with so few movies that they're completely on the same level, they're already having this massive team up, this massive world-ending events. Like it's not even comparable. Like the fact that you can compare them proves that the Snyderverse is so much better because with so few movies, they've managed to achieve so much already.
And what's funny is that guess what? If Zack had been able to complete his movies, we would have had that world-ending event before Endgame.
Exactly.
First off, we would have been done now, and then Warner Brothers could do whatever they want.
Time travel was in the first Justice League movie before it was done in Endgame. Like, just,
that time travel scene was unreal. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
geez.
So there's, I don't. Yeah, you're just not even comparing like I'm like people compare like BVS to Captain America: Civil War when
That's
that was
not even
like,
first off, the plot of that is not even comparable because they don't fight for that long.
yeah, but like it's BVS is like the sequel is like basically a Superman sequel. Civil War was like a build up of like all the Iron Man movies, all the other Captain America, the Avengers movies. It's just so much more. It's taken so much more for the MCU to get to that sort of level, and that's because fundamentally those characters are not as iconic,
Well,
and the movies just don't measure up.
I definitely agree with you on that one. And my main point is that the MCU movies, for the most part, feel like the exact same movie to movie to movie to movie to movie. Where with SnyderVerse, they're relatively like different from movie to movie. Like Man of Steel, it's a little darker but hopeful. BVS, it's very dark because it's basically a Batman movie. And then Justice League, it's very hopeful, and you have this big team up effort. And that's what I think people don't understand too. Going back to what you said earlier, is that yes, they're both superhero movie franchises, but ultimately, and this is the problem Warner Brothers felt, this was the sin that Warner Brothers committed. They thought that these characters are just like the Avengers, which is why they brought in Joss Whedon and to turn this into an Avengers movie, but with Justice League skins. Well, and this is what people don't understand. They're like, I want these movies to be jokey like the Marvel movies, but DC is in general is not the jokey place.
Exactly. Like I think that if you went into any one of those Snyder movies wanting a funny, goofy sort of MCU action movie, of course you're going to be disappointed. But why are you going into it wanting that? Because it's not that.
Because the MCU has ruined superhero movies. That's why they make people think they're all that.
That's why, like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I don't think the Snyder movies are just they're just movies that have superheroes in.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not like, I feel like Marvel has just got this. There are some good Marvel movies. Like, I am a Marvel fan.
Captain America: Civil War, Captain America 2.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, The Winter Soldier is one of my favorites. Like, there are some standout movies, but they're the movies that actually like have plots aside from just being a superhero movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like a lot of the movies are just filler. They're just, have a little struggle, got my powers going, defeat the bad guy, explosions, lots of special effects, maybe a kiss, lots of jokes.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Like, that's just not a good movie. Like, sure, it's fun. Like, if it's my 10-year-old son's birthday, I'll take him with his friends and I'll buy an action figure, but it's not a good movie. Really, it's fun. Like, I think someone said that like MCU movies are like the theme park of movies.
Yeah, that was Scorsese. And honestly, now that I have the Snyderverse to compare them to, he's right.
He's so right. He's so right. Like,
I'm sorry if you actually I'm sorry if you really have to think through a movie.
And yeah, like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, but there is a place for fun movies, but just don't pretend to be something you're not. Because there are some good Marvel movies, and there are some that are just fun, and that's okay. People don't need to fight to the death to prove that they're Oscar worthy. Just let them be theme parks.
I do love how like apparently the story goes is that Disney pressured the Academy to have that Oscar category for like cheer moments so that Marvel could win Oscars, and then the Snyderverse comes in and goes, nope, mine. And the best part is that the scene that won, the Flash scene, the executive who cut that, who said that movie that scene has to leave Justice League when they were like cutting it up, was in attendance, so he got to see his biggest failure come across the screen.
That's very satisfying.
But yeah, and I even said the Snyderverse also, when you think about it, has better action scenes ultimately, because let me put it this way, that Superman scene in the Snyder cut where he completely destroys Steppenwolf, I was telling my friend, when we saw that movie, I'm like, that was way better than the Avengers Endgame moment when everyone shows up, because ultimately, when is the last time you had a badass Superman moment? Besides Man of Steel, ironically.
Yeah, and I just think that, again, like, there's just something so much more real about like the Snyder movies, whereas like I don't know. I mean, of course it's surreal, like a man's flying around and has super strength and things, but the way they seem so like grounded, like you're really emotionally invested. Whereas like, I don't know, I just feel like a lot of the Marvel sleep, especially the big fight in Endgame, it was just so like surreal. Like it was just so like, oh, like I don't know. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I also think, and here's the issue: a lot of the criticism came from, "Oh, that's not Superman, that's not Batman," but and people wanted in one movie for these characters to be the way they are in the comics, which first off, arguably they are, but I always tell people you have to watch the entire arc before you pass judgment on Snyder's iteration of like Superman or Batman. Case in point, when the Snyder Cut came out, everyone's like, I get it now. I'm like, oh, you mean you actually have to wait and be patient?
And like, I have not read comics in a very long time, so don't judge me. But like, no character is like exactly the same throughout any whole issue. Like,
particularly
that's
DC.
the point of being a character. Like, you change from issue to issue and develop and go through things. And I think everyone has their own version of like who each character is in their own mind, but they're never going to be like that in every single plot line. Like things happen to them, they go up, they go down. Like I think we need to give the movies a little bit of grace. You know, it's not going to be the Batman from your absolute favorite comic. It's going to be somewhere of an amalgamation of all these different things.
Yeah, and plus the fact DC specifically is known as the company that reboots every 5 years. So I'm like, there literally is none. I got into an argument with someone about Batman using guns, and they're like, show me one part in modern DC where Batman used a gun. Well, he killed Darkseid in Final Crisis. He literally shot him with a gun. And then my favorite, someone gave me a panel from The Dark Knight Returns where it's Batman saying guns are the tools of cowards and stuff. And I'm like, if you look earlier in the comic, he shoots someone. It's the scene where like that dude is holding Martha captive, and then he goes, I'll kill her, believe me, I'll do it. It's that scene from the comics that comes earlier before that scene. I'm like, you do realize that Batman has a character arc in that story, right? That's generally the idea of writing a comic book. You give your characters a character arc.
Literally, I know. And the whole point of BVS is that he's like down bad. Like, this is a bad Batman. Like, he's not doing well.
Exactly.
Like,
even Alfred says, dude, you're a little much right now. No one defends Batman. Plus the fact, here's the thing, ultimately what I detect is that it's not so much people have a problem with Snyder as they have a problem with Frank Miller, because if you look at the comics that he was adapting, Dark Knight Returns, it's that is pretty obviously the Batman he was adapting. So I'm like, it sounds like you have a more of a problem with the Dark Knight Returns, and that's normally what it is, than with Zack Snyder. Because what I found is that Zack Snyder's movies, when he adapts a comic book, are like the most true to whatever he is adapting. So you probably have a problem with the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, that's what I mean by like there's so many iterations of these characters. Like it can be comic accurate to one run of comics, whilst being completely comic inaccurate to another one.
I know. There have been plenty. By the way, in every continuity, Superman has killed Zod. Everyone.
I mean, didn't he kill Zod in the old Superman movies?
Yes, he does it all the time. I'm like, Superman would never kill Zod. Have you read comics? Yeah. It's not a thing where we're like, oh, he only did that in like the 30s. No, he does it in every continuity. Every single one.
I genuinely feel like if it wasn't for like the MCU setting the precedent that like superhero movies are just goofy and fun and light and jokes and surreal and just not really grounded in reality, these movies would be wildly positively accepted.
They still are. The SnyderVerse is way more popular than people can give it credit for. It's just Twitter, and well, Twitter is not a.
I think it's more popular than people give it credit for, but I think considering how good it is, I feel like it could have been a lot more popular if there wasn't so much negativity around it.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't help that Warner Brothers routinely sabotages the movies. There was no marketing for the Snyder Cut, and what's interesting is that when they announced it's coming on digital, that was like the first time the Warner Brothers account has ever acknowledged the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, here's the other issue. Here's what one of the reasons why the MCU took off, because it had the support of Disney and the MCU. Well, the Snyderverse was constantly being sabotaged by like releasing a BVS with a half hour taken out, doing what they did with Justice League. It's really it astounds me. I have never seen a movie studio sabotage their IP more than one. Case in point, they're all fired.
I just like, I can't believe how many like iconic characters they're sitting on. It's insane. It's insane.
Even Zaslav was like, why aren't you guys using Superman? Forget Wonder Woman. Superman. The dude that created your company.
Like, especially I would say like in the early days of the MCU. I don't know if now it's kind of different, but like I feel like when I was a kid, like 10 years ago, if someone said like quickly name 10 superheroes, 8 out of 10 were going to be DC heroes.
Yeah, because guess what? The Avengers and Iron Man and all those guys, D-list characters back then.
Exactly. So it's just like, I don't know why Warner Bros. Are sitting on such iconic characters, like such well-known heroes. It's just ridiculous. It's
don't worry. Don't worry. We had to have a Wonder Twins movie first before we had a Superman movie. I still can't believe that was ever released.
We had to have a Peacemaker TV show.
Oh, the Peacemaker TV show. I watched 3 episodes and was like, I'm done. There were so many people that said, this is what the DCEU should have been. Oh, really? Are you kidding me? And by the way, mind you, this is how I know DC Warner Brothers clearly has a vendetta against Snyder, because they let James Gunn come in and do whatever he wanted.
Exactly. James Gunn got to make a Peacemaker TV show. That's not even a D-list character. That's like that's like
I had to dig through the DC encyclopedia to find this character, and he like has like a very small paragraph entry. It's not even a full page, just like and then not only that, a series where he makes very explicit jokes about your most famous superheroes. And then my favorite was at the end of the show when the Justice League showed up. Everyone's like, James Gunn saved the Justice League. Doing a cameo that saves them? What? This is getting really ridiculous. Which plus the fact I'm not a fan of James Gunn's humor when he's given like free reign, because I think it's like very infantile and very like
uncomfortable.
Yes, a very uncomfortable. And if you've seen his past tweets, it's very indicative. I'm like, oh, geez.
Well, if you see like the kind of people he's friends with, his jokes even more uncomfortable.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of jokes about the certain jokes he's made about people, him going to certain parties. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But our point is that, and here's the other thing, is that, you know, it's kind of funny. I got into a debate with someone too, is because speaking of Wonder Woman, so DC had the first successful female superhero movie. And here's the thing. Captain Marvel only made $1 billion because it was marketed as you had to watch this to understand Endgame, which is hilarious because when I saw Endgame and saw how little it linked to Captain Marvel, I even love how Kevin Feige basically said she was going to be the one to beat Thanos, and Thanos just punches her away.
Yeah, that was just ridiculous.
But it's like, when you think about it, here's why Wonder Woman was successful while Captain Marvel really wasn't. Because in Captain Marvel, they made it so the male characters were like the most horrible characters ever. Wonder Woman, she needed Steve Trevor and his team in order to accomplish her goal. And that's my problem. When they make female superhero movies now, they always have to denigrate any male characters. And honestly, they did the same thing with Wonder Woman 2. One of the many reasons why that movie was horrible.
That was an absolutely dreadful movie.
Like when they made Wonder Woman basically a yeah, you know what I'm referencing.
Yeah, I'm exactly saying. I've got into so many arguments about this online. To me, it blows my mind how you could read that any other way.
Yeah, I'm like, And so many people were like, oh, that movie only bombed because of COVID. I'm like, well, maybe it bombed because it was also not a good movie, because there are plenty of movies that came out during COVID that were like unbelievably successful. So in my mind, that whole argument vanishes. I'm sorry if you're okay giving Patty Jenkins free reign, and we all know what happens when she gets free reign, because if you notice, Wonder Woman 1, who is one of the writers of that movie?
Exactly, yeah. But no, yeah, it was just dreadful. It was just dreadful. Like it completely, like Diana was pathetic. She was absolutely pathetic.
And I got concerned when I heard Patty Jenkins say, "Oh, well, we're not going to have the sword and the shield because Wonder Woman's not a warrior," and I'm like, "What? What? She was in your previous movie."
And the thing is, I liked Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman, but it's
Everyone
by no
did.
means one of my favorite like superhero movies, to be honest.
No, mine's a Snyder cut for some.
But it's not like up there. But there was so many like scenes where I was like, as a woman, it was iconic. Like when she was walking on no man's land, like when she snapped the guns and like there was so many like great action scenes that were just like undeniably like cool. Oh, sorry, we're not allowed to swear.
Don't worry, I'll bleep it out. I bleep out all this stuff. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I cannot think of a single I cannot think of a single like 3-second sequence in second Wonder Woman movie where I thought she is cool, she's strong. There was not a single there wasn't a single punch where I was like, this is a strong, cool character.
There was that meme of her walking as the wind is blowing at her and a piece of paper gets caught in her face. I'm like, oh my gosh. You know what it was? Patty Jenkins was trying to make a Christopher Reeve style movie. And this is what I tell people. A lot of people think that like Zack Snyder's Superman should be like the Christopher Reeves level, or like the Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman should be that level. But that's not relevant anymore. There's a reason why. It's like if you watch the Christopher Reeves movie now, it doesn't hold up. Because ultimately it's like, okay, so you have this being that has godlike powers and he shows up and goes, I'm here to help you. And everyone's cool with it. Like what? And that's why everyone's like, BVS is depressing. No, it's realistically what would happen if a being with God powers showed up.
Like that's the thing with the Marvel movies. What I meant like about like the fight scenes, they don't feel as real. Like it doesn't feel like our world.
No.
Like even the way like the civilians act, like they're laughing and like asking for Thor's signature, like it very much feels like this is like the Marvel universe. This is not our politicians, this is not our people. Whereas I feel like in the Snyder universe, the way everyone reacts to the superheroes, like the politics and like just the entire situation, the way civilians are shown in the background, it just feels so real. Like you feel more emotionally invested.
Yeah, and it's like also people saying the Superman fight like leveled Metropolis. Did you see how many people got leveled in the first Avengers movie? They reference it in Civil War. This is my problem too. People critique the SnyderVerse movies for points that they later excuse in the MCU movies.
That's the thing, like with the damage that it caused to the city, because Marvel movies are just like sort of goofy and like not really grounded in the real world. That's why the movies don't address the damage, and therefore the audience don't pay attention to it. But because the Snyder movies are like rooted in like humanity and real life, and they're serious films, they acknowledge the damage.
Yeah.
But then it's like Snyder doesn't care about civilians dying. No, he does. That's why he takes it seriously.
And that's why Superman killed Zod. That's literally the reason for it. And you notice, going to that point, people critique it like Superman would never kill Zod. And for first off, I've already addressed that he always has. But also, what happened after Superman? So first off, Superman was constantly saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, giving him every opportunity to stop. When he wouldn't stop, he snapped his neck. And what did he do? He didn't go, ha, 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 I've murdered. No, he screamed. And apparently that was improvised by Henry Cavill. That wasn't even in the script. So I'm like, he doesn't take, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. And it's like, the thing is when people like hate on these movies so much, there's nothing you can do to appease them. Like if you mention that scene like, oh, Superman's crying because he's killed someone and it's a big deal to him, he's a good person, then they'll circle back. Oh yeah, Superman never smiles in the movie. He's so depressing.
He does.
It's just everything is just a cycle of criticism, and honestly, I don't get it because there's plenty of movies I don't like, but I would rather talk about the ones I do like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
First
it's
off,
fun to be a hater.
Superman always smiles. Superman smiles multiple times in
Loads.
in Man of Steel, BVS, especially in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And the reason why he seems a little down in BVS is because wouldn't you be a little depressed if you're trying to help people and they keep calling you a threat? I'm like, put yourself in these guys' shoes, okay?
And like that's the point of like a movie. Like the character is supposed to struggle. Like we're supposed to see him overcome something. Like what am I going to watch if I'm going to watch him just be happy and like live his life?
So many people have critiqued Superman in the past and said, "Oh, Superman's just a one-note character who can like destroy everything." Snyder said, "Well, okay, he's super strong, but what Snyder did is he basically attacked Superman mentally and put Superman through this sort of mental stress. Like I said before, trying to save people, and everyone wants to kill him, including Batman."
Yeah, like I've always like liked Superman in like sort of Justice League cartoons and like comic books, but I've never like felt compelled to pick up a Superman comic book because I just don't find him like relatable. That's why I find it so impressive that Snyder did make him so relatable. Like there were so many scenes where I like just empathized with him as a human. Like I felt like that before, like what he was feeling in that scene. And I just think that's so impressive to make this basically like godlike character feel so familiar. Like, and I don't see why that's a criticism. Like, what?
And speaking of the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, I was watching that scene today because it's so badass when he fights Darkseid and punches him through a building. I'm like, you want to talk about the destructive four? Actually, no, 4 buildings at once. So I'm like, this is my other issue. Your criticisms you hold up even in earlier iterations of the character. That's what I'm like. A lot of people are very disingenuous when it comes to their criticisms of these movies.
Yeah, I don't get it. I think the internet is just a toxic place, and once it catches on,
That's Twitter for you.
Yeah, like once it's cool to hate something, there's people that just want to hate anything. Like, okay, I'll join in with this.
Although I will say Twitter's going to be fantastic when they actually announce that they're going to restore the SnyderVerse, because I can't wait to see it all burn down. It's going to be so great.
Are they? Will they? I don't know.
Oh yeah, they will. Because well, first off, they started when they announced the digital release of Zack Snyder's Justice League and promote it. Now, it's not going to be like now. It's not going to be now. It's going to be like probably like a couple of years down the line when they establish DC Films. When they do that, then they're going to look at what what's popular, what people want, and very clearly what trends every single day. Literally every single day.
I feel like the weakest Snyder fan right now because I was so like, Snyder Cut's coming, Snyder Cut's coming, Snyder Cut's coming, and it came, but I don't know. I think he's done. I think Snyder's done. I think that a lot of the cast are done.
Well, first off, Snyder said he would come back when asked. Ben Affleck will come back if Snyder asked, because those end scenes, those were shot recently. Yeah, all these guys will come back to work for Zack, and you notice all the executives that said the SnyderVerse is like a one-way street or something like that, they're fired.
I know. I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Have faith. Have faith.
Oh.
Let me put it this way. We didn't think the Snyder Cut was going to come out, and we all know what happened with that.
I did. I knew it. I single-handedly made that come back.
Really?
I every single time. Every single time it trended, I tweeted.
No, but I mean,
before it was announced. I was very much. I definitely think it's coming out. I 100% thought it was going to come out.
Really? Oh,
I just have faith because I'm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Have faith now. Weird stuff.
I'm not feeling it. I don't feel it this time.
It would be more unlikely that the Snyder Cut was going to come out.
No, I don't think so, because they only had to film a couple of scenes, and it just
No. So much VFX had to be
yeah,
done.
loads of that, but I don't know. I can't see like that was just to a streaming service as well. Like I can't see them backing this, and also like they've already started like the Batgirl movie and things like that, and like going forward in
There's a
different
magical
ways.
thing in DC, Elseworlds. Even
Oh,
Zach has
yeah,
said my
I
stuff is
know.
Elseworlds, and they can just release on HBO Max. Because here's why it's good to release on HBO Max as opposed to theaters. They don't have to worry about runtime.
Yeah.
That's
I
why there
just
was a 4-hour cut of Justice League,
don't know.
which I've seen 9 times.
I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced. I don't know.
Then I'll tell you what, when it's announced, I will have you on the show again and
Okay,
I will rub it in your face. I had faith.
You won't be able to rub it in my face because I'll be so happy. I will be so happy if I'm wrong and it is restored. I will be very, very happy, so I won't even care. But I don't know. I've just got a feeling it's not happening.
We'll see. But so in light of that, before we log off, I just want to say, what's your favorite part of the Snyder Cut?
My favorite part of Snyder Cut is the final battle because I'm excited.
That whole hour-long segment, I'm like, oh, this is dope. Particularly, one of my favorite parts is when the parademons pry open the dropship. You see the Batmobile headlights, the machine guns start firing.
No, like, if I had to pick like a final favorite like moment, it's like when Superman hits Steppenwolf and then Aquaman gets him and then Wonder Woman beheads him.
They're juggling him.
Yeah, and then they started the portal. I was like, yeah.
And they're staring at Darkseid, and I'm like, yeah, your move, bro. My favorite is when Superman first shows up, and
yes,
because I thought that okay, so Cyborg getting hurt was in the Snyder Cut, and Whedon just changed it. No, I'm like, at that moment, I was like, so it was either that. It's okay. So you're telling me it was either Superman showing up like that, or just showing up and going, I believe in truth, but I'm also a big fan of justice. With his crazy CGI lip. By the way, that was the biggest thing where I was like, oh, thank God, no stupid CGI. Then he shows up in the black suit, which was all CGI.
That was gorgeous, though.
Yeah, the black suit. And I'm like, it looked glorious to the point where I've got that.
Oh yeah, you showed me. That was amazing.
He shows up, and then I'm like, because you notice the entire movie they're hyping up that the forces of apocalypse are scared of Kryptonians, and you keep wondering why Superman shows up. Oh, that's why. And then you wonder how Snyder can top this. Then the Flash scene happens.
Yeah, that was just. Oh, I loved how relevant every character was as well. It was so great. It was so
notice
great.
He gave every superhero in that movie had their cool moment, which is a hard thing to do when you're doing a team movie because you have to make sure you give everyone their equal moment. No, everyone. Wonder Woman got multiple. Her first scene showing up, her beheading Steppenwolf. And everyone's like, Wonder Woman wouldn't kill. I got news for you, dude. She's always killed.
Yeah.
She literally said in the new 52, Clark, there's a reason why my list of supervillains is smaller than yours or Bruce's.
That panel.
Yeah, I love that. It's so good. And even Superman's like, you don't mean killing them. She's like, when I deal with them, I deal with them. I'm like, yeah, that's Wonder Woman. She is a warrior. She will kill you.
Literally.
Oh, and also, I'm like, wait a second. Superman has always killed like aliens. So you're telling me it's okay if he kills aliens?
Alien phobia.
Yeah, exactly. But it's going back to Superman being a badass. He literally heat visions off Steppenwolf's horn. I did not.
Like, I love how he used like all of his powers. Like there was never like a moment in that where you're like, oh, like the Flash could have just done that. Oh, Superman could have just done this. That was stupid. No, they did it every time.
When the axe comes down, Superman just goes, just nonchalantly frostbite, as opposed to him going, which looks stupid. But it's just like Superman was totally like, you got nothing, bro, before he just completely tore Steppenwolf apart. And I'm like, that's why he's Superman. And the Flash goes back in time, and I'm like, the reason why that scene was taken out is because the executives didn't understand what was happening. he's going back in time. That's literally what happened. Oh, and let's not forget. So I was watching the Snyder Cut with a buddy of mine, and we have this running joke where randomly we'll just go mother because of the Whedon cut where Steppenwolf's constantly saying that. And he turns to me and goes, Jared, did they ever explain why Steppenwolf was saying mother? I'm like, nope, never did. And I'm like, they even took that out in Steppenwolf. By the way, Steppenwolf's design looked
so much
way better.
So much better.
I'm like, he went from bad PS2 style villain to this spiky, really intimidating, very much larger looking dude.
Yeah, definitely.
The armor reacted. He was even afraid of Darkseid, which first off, Darkseid was actually in this movie.
I know. It was just no holding back. It was just a Justice League movie. It wasn't like the first Justice League movie where we're dipping our toes in. It was just like, here they are.
Yeah, it was basically like it's basically like Zack's like, I don't want the fans to walk out of this saying, oh, that was good, but it would have been so much better if he showed up, if he showed up. Nope, he's in there. Yeah. Although I also love the Twitter reaction when Amber Heard shows up in the movie.
Gosh, yeah.
Everyone's like, okay. That's another reason why people are like, well, the SnyderVerse can't be restored because of Amber Heard and Ezra Miller. I'm like, recast.
Yeah, it's not such a big deal.
No, and Zack could actually say, okay, Wally West showed up. Oh, and speaking of actors, this is another thing that I always tell people. Zack is the reason why you have Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Warner Brothers would never have cast Jason Momoa as Aquaman.
All the great casting positions, yeah.
He would never have cast Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, and everyone loves her. So I'm like, at least give him credit for his casting. He cast Henry Cavill. The Justice League was his casting. 100%. Remember when everyone was kind of upset that Ben Affleck was Batman, and then BVS shows up and it was like, oh no, this is way better. Well, it's because Daredevil.
Yeah. Oh.
Apparently there's a director's cut of that movie that makes it way better. And I'm like, can't we just get the director's cuts of these movies from now on? Because they're clearly better. Isn't
that like the director's job to like make the movie? Can we just let them do it?
And this is why I always tell people, I had a former DC comics artist on my show like a couple of months ago, and even he said, you hire us to do a job, to create this product. Let us do it. If you don't like our vision, why did you hire us?
Literally.
And I'm like, and this way I always tell people also, go back to Zack. Okay, say what you want about Zack Snyder. At least he had a plan. It was going I said this on MSK's show the other night. I was like, at least he had a plan. Warner Brothers clearly has no plan.
I know. It's like Disney Star Wars.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started on Disney Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. I've got to go be a mom now anyway.
My favorite is, I will say one thing about Disney Star Wars. I love where Kathleen Kennedy is like, okay, we don't have any books or backstory to reference off of it. I'm like, yeah, you do. You decanonized everything.
I know. Oh.
You literally have it.
No.
But that's an episode for another day. I think it's a good place to leave it, Hannah. Thank you for coming on the show. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. No, thank you. Okay.
It's
Bye-bye.
It's nice having another Snyder fan on the show. Thank you. But all right, stay here, everyone. Bye bye.